Hey, you, welcome to Home to Me, a podcast where we explore all things related to building and maintaining self trust. Spoiler alert, today's episode's no different. We're gonna get real deep into some tough shit. Hi, and welcome back. I love getting to sit down once a week and just explore these themes. These are things I think about a lot of the time, but I don't have any space to talk about them, so this feels lovely. Thank you, as usual, for listening. Today, I was inspired by this trend, and I'm sure it's not an actual trend on TikTok, but it is absolutely flooding my For You page. And it's definitely because I follow a bunch of therapists, but also just because I've been watching specific videos and this keeps coming up. Anyway, the theme is kids who cut off their parents, adult children who stop speaking with their parents. And it seems as if, and again, this is just on my probably niche corner of the internet, there's obviously a little domestic situation going on, like a little war going on, right? The one side, obviously made up of adult children who have gone low or no contact with their parents, are strongly pro protecting your space and your mental health and prioritizing chosen family that makes you feel safe and heard and understood over blood family just because you're related. And then, of course, we have the other side of parents who appear devastated that their kids don't want anything to do with them. And then there seems to be also on that side parents who maybe have younger kids but who are obviously having some very strong feelings about the idea that kids can cut off their parents. I feel like that's why I thought this would be a good podcast episode, because I think that I have a balanced story and I have enough time to make it nuanced of being a child, an adult child of a parent that I went no contact with and now have contact with again. So I was like, let me come on here on my safe space and share my thoughts on that, because it does also hit a little bit close to home. There was a time where I went no contact with one of my parents, and it's no longer like that. And so I feel like I have a sort of unique perspective, because when I'm hearing these videos of these people online, of these adult kids who are cutting off their parents or going low or no contact with their parents, I remember feeling like how I'm seeing them feel, or how the therapists are talking about their clients online. I'm able to recognize a time where I was in that exact position and when I felt the exact same way, where I was like, this is not sustainable and I don't feel comfortable or safe or understood or anything. And the best and healthiest thing for me would be to go no contact. And I also feel how I feel now, not being no contact anymore. And I figured that maybe it would be informative or helpful to somebody out there who is in this experience on either side to share what changed. Thing to note in all of this is that my parent did not change. I feel like that's common question. What did your parent do to get that relationship back? And I'm going to answer you honestly, and this is just my story. This is not what I'm saying always happened, but nothing, literally nothing. My parent did not change. And so that's why, another reason why I think I can make this podcast, maybe if somebody listens to it and they want to and they feel like it's relevant, please do not take anything I say in this podcast as advice, as therapeutic guidance. This is my personal experience. I'm going to make that very, very clear. This is what I'm sharing with you as Steph, and not as LMHC, NCC counselor, okay, therapist. That's not who's talking right now. There was a time about 7 years ago now where I went no contact with one of my parents. And at the time, there was just no other choice. I was so dysregulated so much of the time. I was not feeling okay in that relationship at all. Like, my body was just always in fight or flight, always defensive, always scared, genuinely not okay. I could not be around this parent. My body physically was having like a visceral reaction of wanting to turn away, move away, avoid, like just avoid, avoid, avoid. During that time, there was just no way that I could fathom myself ever in my life having any kind of relationship with this parent again. Every time I was around this parent or thought about talking to this parent on the phone, even getting texts from this parent, my throat would close up. I would feel like someone was like sticking their fist right at the base of my throat. So it wouldn't close up like I couldn't breathe, but it would close up like someone's trying to take my voice. And years later, I did EMDR therapy and that feeling came back so much. So, hello, trauma. Also in my chest, and my whole body would fold in on itself and turn without me even trying to do that, like trying to turn away or trying to move away. My body would just automatically move completely away. So there was just so much lack of safety. And I will say, even though now I am no longer no contact with that parent and we do have a relationship, I still stand by what I decided back then. I think sometimes when parents hear about kids cutting off their parents, they are like, well, what did their parent do? Couldn't have been that bad. They start evaluating themselves and be like, well, did they just spank them sometimes? So, no, in case you are a parent listening to this, no, that's not what happened. It was truly devastating. It was constant throughout my whole childhood, but it was one specific incident that stopped that relationship back then. And I promise you, if I shared it with you, you would be like, oh, okay, indefensible. But also, low key, don't care because it doesn't actually matter what the reason is for a child to cut off their parent. I'm going to just go with the child on that one, right? And I am a parent, so I feel like I can say that. I'm just always going to go with the child on that one until proven otherwise. I know that people maybe think people cutting off their family members is harsh. And maybe sometimes it is. I don't know everybody's story. But I will tell you nothing, nothing, nothing in my entire life hurts more still now, even though now I feel quite healed, than recognizing that you don't have the kind of parent that you deserve to have. You don't have an unconditionally loving, attentive, emotionally mature, present, competent, selfless parent. I will tell you, I went through every single emotion about that. And so did my family, and so did my siblings. It was really, really, really hard at the beginning because I was very defensive about my decision. I didn't want to tell my siblings what happened, but we all grew up in the same house, so they had an idea of most of it. But I didn't want to tell my siblings the one main thing that actually made me make the decision. Number one, I was embarrassed, and I'm not going to go into like that whole emotional situation, but I was just embarrassed. And number two, I didn't want them to be influenced by my decision, but actually, no. As I'm saying that, I'm like, that's not true, Steph. What I didn't want is for them to feel like they have to choose. I didn't want to tell them something that will devastate them so much that then they would feel like they have to choose my side. And then they would be stuck in that feeling of guilt, because this is what happens when you have a parent that has narcissistic tendencies is the guilt is real. Okay. You feel very responsible for that parent's feelings. You are the regulating tool. You are the soother of that parent's feelings. And so it's very hard to break out of that cycle. It's very, very hard to unlearn how to prioritize that parent's feeling or how to take ownership for only yourself and stop taking responsibility for how that parent feels. Stop feeling like it's your job to help that parent through a feeling. Learning that, or let me say like unlearning that, is so difficult. And I say that as a person because I remember and I did it. And also because I see as a therapist how many people and you don't need to have a narcissistic parent for this to be true. This is true, I think, a lot of times for emotionally immature parents where they don't have the skills to regulate their own bodies. And so they rely on their kids to do it. And I can tell you a little bit more about what that looks like. For an example, what that would look like would be if you are 6 and your parent buys you a birthday present and they get you a bike and the bike is red and you really wanted the blue one, and you open it and you're disappointed that you got the red one and not the blue one, and you start to cry, and then your parent starts to cry, and they are like, "You're so ungrateful. You're making me feel so bad. I gave you this bike out of the goodness of my heart. This is such a terrible day now." It's that thing of like a 6-year-old child, a 5-year-old child, a 4-year-old child, a 12-year-old child, a 16-year-old child don't have the ability to see the world in a adult way. Like, it's just not possible. It shouldn't be possible. It's not developmentally appropriate. And so when you have a parent that expects the child to be the regulated one so that the parent can act like a child, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean with emotionally immature parents, is you'll have a parent that acts like a child and then expects you to be the parent. It's going to be very hard for them to recognize a feeling for what it is. So they're going to feel maybe something in the family of hurt, embarrassed, ashamed. They're going to feel those feelings maybe, and then those feelings are going to come out as anger, dismissal, frustration, defensiveness. So the parent will expect you to manage your disappointment, even though you're 6 or 7, little, very little, not yet able to do that. And the parent will expect you to learn how to do that at that very young, unnecessary age so that they feel better. And you know what? All of us have that as adults. Like, even for me with my son, sometimes I notice when I'm starting to expect him to be an adult and I start acting like a child, like I can recognize it too in myself. So this is not a criticism of parents at all. This is just an example of why it's hard to unlearn taking care of a parent, because it's usually ingrained in us and we're very well practiced. We usually learn at a very young age how to do that if we have an emotionally immature parent. So anyway, that's why I didn't want to tell my siblings, because I didn't want them to be stuck in that place of trying to be on my side because they can objectively see that is the quote unquote right side, and having to sit in that guilt, especially if that parent's going to call them and be sad, etc., etc., that I didn't want them to be stuck in there. So I was like, I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to say that I'm not going to have a relationship with this parent for now. And it's okay. And we can talk about that parent with me, and nothing's going to change in our relationship. It's just my relationship with this parent's changing, whatever. And so I move, and that's where the big feelings really start to hit me. When I had distance and I was able to start processing everything I'd been carrying in my body for so many years, was really, really hard time. I would have nightmares maybe once a week of these visceral dreams where I'm literally attacking this parent, and literally in my dream I'm getting so frustrated. It was always the same theme. It's like my parent is standing there, like the whole family's together. I'm having a feeling, and this parent is just acting like it's fine. Something really not fine is happening. It could have been anything. There wasn't the same thing every dream, but something really not okay is happening to me. People are treating me badly, or something really unfair is happening, or I'm in some kind of danger. And this parent is smirking about it and just pretending it's not a big deal. And I can see all my siblings and my other parent want to help, but then looking at this other parent and then being like, oh, never mind. Oh, okay, maybe she is being dramatic. And I'm wanting to yell at them like, hello, can you not see? You don't have to listen to this parent. This is such bullshit. And at the same time, I'm wanting to claw the eyes out of this parent, because I'm like, do you not see what you're doing? Not just to me. I'm okay. I'm basically have my whole own life with my whole own husband and my whole own new country. But look at the people around you. Look how you're hurting them. Look how stuck they are. Look how scared they are. Look how they can't have a normal reaction because of you. So this would be a theme that happened in my dream. And in my dream, I would genuinely eventually get so fucking mad that I would jump on this parent and just start to gouge any way I could. I would wake up and I would be so upset and I would cry. It was really, really hard in the beginning. And this didn't happen constantly all the time. I don't want it to seem like I was just a completely dysregulated human. However, it did happen a lot more than was very comfortable to me in my body. At the same time, I'm in a new country. I'm struggling to find a therapist that I connect with, because just the cultural competence of, and I can say this, okay, because I am a therapist, so no shade, but the cultural competence of the training programs in America is shocking. It's not enough. It's not even close to enough. So genuinely was just almost impossible to find a therapist. I found good therapists, but I didn't find therapists that I felt like I could actually connect with. Anyway, so after the rage, the absolute rage, came this desperation, and this is going to sound fucked up, okay? But came this desperation for this parent to pass away. But stay with me, not in like a hateful way, in a way that was like, so I'm a Christian, not like one of those Christians, okay? Calm down. The kind that isn't horrible to other people. Anyway, so I would think, and actually one of the therapists asked me this. They were like, what would you do if your parent passed away tomorrow? Would you have regrets? Would you want to have spoken to them again? Would you want to have made amends in some way? And I said, nope. That actually would make me so calm, because I'm a Christian. So I believe when you die, you go to heaven. And then I believe that once that happens, once those parents in heaven, then they're going to finally recognize their fucked up behavior, and they're going to feel the appropriate level of grief and remorse for what they were like while they were on earth. And somehow I would then know that they're sorry. That's where I lived then for the next period. So after that anger, that's where I lived. I wouldn't think like, I hope this happens. That's never a thought I had. But I would think that if it did happen, all I would feel would be relief. And I would feel relief, not like, thank goodness this person isn't on earth anymore. But I would feel relief because I would almost have permission to love this parent, even though I of course do and never stop. But I would have permission to freely love this parent without feeling like I'm being some kind of way, because I would know and trust that this parent would now have recognized how fucked up they were as a parent, and that they would be genuinely sorry about it. So that was the next phase, okay? It was this deep desire to just be validated and to just have this parent take accountability for what they did. I would fantasize about that happening. Whenever I thought about this parent, or whenever I missed them, or whenever the family was together, or whenever it was Christmas or birthday or the like national holiday celebrating that parent, I would just fantasize about what would have to happen for this parent to realize what they did. And then I would at the same time be like, well, if they want to realize what they did, like, I obviously have to tell them. And I obviously tried a bunch of times. Of course, it didn't work. They didn't get it. It took me many years to figure that out, because before that, I had tried so many times to just be like, hey, hello, can you see what you're doing? This is not okay. After so many years before that, being too scared to say anything, because I was in that other place where I was like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make them feel bad. So the next phase was that, just like this desperation for this person. And I was convinced at that time, which probably was about, I would say, I moved to America 7 years ago now. So I would say this was about 4 years ago, where I felt like that's where I'd gotten through the anger. I'd gotten through maybe I'm not right about that. Hold on. Maybe 5 years ago. I feel like the first 2 years were mostly anger. And then after that, it was this desperation just to be seen and validated. I will say I had this desperation before as well. But because I was there, I was just so dysregulated that I was just feeling a whole bunch of stuff that I couldn't even name. I started my grad program about a year after I moved to America. And during that time is when I really had to unpack a lot of stuff that happened in childhood, and where I also started learning a lot about personality disorders and emotional immaturity and the impact on kids of emotionally immature parents, etc., etc., etc. And I had to do a lot of self-exploration. Building self-awareness is a very big part of being a therapist. That's most of the training, I would say, is understanding yourself, understanding transference, understanding countertransference. We would have to disclose a lot of stuff about ourselves in the groups and etc. in school. And so there was a lot of time spent thinking about that relationship and noticing how much it shaped me as a person. And so through that process, I think a lot of new stuff was uncovered for me emotionally. And then I would go from anger to resentment to grief to hurt to desperation for validation to just deep sadness and regret, just every kind of emotion you could think of. And I just honestly, now when I look back, I'm like, what did I do with those feelings? Nothing. I just let them exist there. I just kept not talking to this parent. I kept no contact. It became just a regular part of my life. Everybody in my family during that time got more and more used to the idea that them and I didn't have a relationship. And so it got easier and easier, really, on the whole family, too. My siblings would sometimes tell me that this parent asked them something about me, or they would say, what can I tell them about you? And at the beginning, I will say I was very protective over my new life. I didn't want anybody to share anything about my life with this parent, because one of the things that had happened during childhood was just this like assuming of credit for every good thing that I did. And when I didn't do something good, or when I wasn't doing that well, a lie about that I actually was doing well. So it was really, there was a lot of feeling around being good enough for this parent to brag about, and how it almost didn't actually matter if I was actually doing well, because he was going to tell people that I was doing well anyway. So it didn't matter. I didn't want any part of my life to be used to get more attention for this parent. What is the word that the Gen Z, clout, whatever. I didn't want any of my shit, anything that I did, because this life over here that I was building, it was just me that was building it. My husband and I, obviously, but like from my family, it was just me. I was doing it all by myself. Nobody could take credit for it except for me. If it was an utter fuck up, it would be me. If it was an utter success, it would be me. It was just mine. And I loved that. And I didn't want anybody to share any single thing with that parent. My social media was private. I didn't have anybody on there that could share anything except obviously my siblings and my other parent, but they wouldn't do that. So that was how I lived maybe for 3 years from moving here. And then I just kept living. And then I just was happy, and I just worked really hard, and I had a job that I really loved, and I made friends, and I still have wonderful friends in South Africa too. And I just started to be very content with my life. It took me about 4 years, I will say, to actually get to a point where I felt okay. And it wasn't like I had decided that at some point I was going to regain communication with this parent. That was not a choice that I made. I just kind of unblocked their number on my phone. And then I unarchived the WhatsApp. And then I sent a Father's Day message. And then I sent a birthday message, and other way around. And then a Christmas message. And then I don't know. And then it just started to happen. And I felt neutral about it. I was just like, oh, I'm sending this picture to everybody. I can include them. Like, it's fine. And of course, this parent, being who they are, just acted like nothing had happened, said literally nothing, was just like, hey, I hope you're having a great day. Literally just crazy. But when that happened, I giggled. I was like, literally, of course. Of course, I have not spoken to you in almost 4 years, and you don't know anything about my life, and now I'm regaining contact with you, and it's not, I'm so glad you're back, and oh, I missed, it's just the same, like, oh, thank you, hope you had a great day, send my love to Mark. Just like, so bizarre. And I laughed, and when I laughed, I was like, oh wait, I think I feel fine about this. I feel like this is what it feels like when you process grief of that parent. Because if you want to have a relationship with the parent you have to first grieve the parent that you wanted, but you never had. And I guess in theory, I understood that, but feeling it was so different. And when I looked back that day when I was just laughing, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't feel bad that like they weren't throwing me a party for regaining contact. I also don't feel bad. Like, of course that happened. I know who they are. That reaction was so on brand that it actually made me giggle. And no, do I have feelings of like gratitude towards this parent? Can I see the best in them? Can I see ways in my life? No, no, and no. Okay. And I've had too many a therapist and a person ask me that. Like, just think about, like, is there anything you can be grateful for that? Or like, no, I don't have that. Okay. But I almost feel like that doesn't matter. I don't need to have that. I feel fine. I feel connected enough to this person to have them know my child and to get nice messages from me. And every now and then, when I'm feeling particularly in a good mood, I will be very generous and share an accomplishment that I know that they're going to go brag about, and it's fine with me. I'm like, yeah, there you go. I sometimes do still experience sadness when I see a parent be so attentive to their adult daughter in the way that I would have loved. I do still get this sadness in my body, but it is not anything like resentment, or it's like, it feels almost, I want to label it as healthy sadness. It feels like a healthy amount of grief that I won't have that. And I think that's what grief is, right? It doesn't leave you. You just grow around it. And I can feel that because I still feel it in my body. But what I don't ever feel is guilt and a need to tend to this person's emotions. And I want to say to you, if you're a child that is thinking about going no contact, or has gone no contact, or is low contact, or has relationships with their parents when you feel like they're maybe emotionally immature, or God forbid, they're narcissists, if you can unlearn how to take responsibility for how that person feels, genuinely unlearn it, not unlearn it in your brain, unlearn it in your body. That is where the key was for me to regain contact. Not that that was ever the goal. That was not the goal that I had. I honestly didn't ever think I would. I also like the idea that I have two parents who know what's going on in my life and who are going to send me messages on my birthday and tell me how cute my kid is. This parent has no more control over me, like zero. And that allows me to have an actual relationship with this person where I feel completely in control of myself. And does this parent still do fucked up shit? For sure. Does that stuff still make me angry? For sure. It makes me angry for my siblings, though, and for my other parent. It doesn't make me angry for myself. And that already is so much easier to carry. It's just easier. And so I want to say, if you are in this situation as a parent or as a child, if you're a parent, give your child time, okay? Just give them time. Don't smother them, don't suffocate them. Don't think you can shame them or blame them into coming back into your life, okay? That's not going to happen. Just stop doing that. Don't do that at all. If you want to do anything, send a text every now and then saying, I hate that this is what's happening between us. I understand that you don't want to see me. I hope you're safe. I love you. I miss you. If you need anything, please reach out. You'll probably piss them off so much if you do that anyway. But I'm just giving you as a parent something you can do that is the least bad option. Okay? Because also sometimes, as much as that child may hate getting that text and at the beginning, like hate it, maybe eventually, I'm saying maybe eventually, when they look back, they will see that you never stopped trying. Okay? So do that, but that's it. Leave them alone. Don't shame them. Don't make them feel bad. Don't do any of that. And if you are a child of a parent that you're disconnecting from, give yourself all the permission in the world to heal. Okay? It also doesn't help to hold on to all of that anger and resentment. And I'm not saying this from a judgmental place or an own your own part in this place. That's not where this is coming from. This is coming from a place of I was there once. At some point, I had to decide that I wanted to feel better, because it can be very, very tempting to hold on to that anger and that hurt and that betrayal and internalize it and make it a part of our identities. It can be so tempting to do that. It gives you that validity that you haven't had ever from this person or from both of your parents. It gives it to you. And so it's very tempting to stay angry and stay there. But you only end up fucking yourself, okay? Hold on to it as long as you need, but just pay attention to how long it's been. At some point, ideally, you want to let that go so that you can fully heal. It doesn't matter if you never talk to that parent again. It's not for them. It's for you. Okay. This was like a very deep and vulnerable podcast. And if you're still around and you're still listening, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I have no quote today, except that I want to say relationships are really hard. And don't get caught up in what everybody is saying about it on TikTok, on either side, okay? Or on Instagram or your friends, etc. It's your journey, just yours. You are the person who's going to make the best decision for you, whatever that looks like, okay? You just take ownership of that journey. You trust yourself to make good decisions, okay? It's hard to trust yourself, but this is a great practice. If this is happening in your life, practice validating yourself. Practice knowing that you deserve whatever kind of healing you need. Practice knowing that the things that happened to you were not okay. And even if you're the only one who sees it, that's okay. That's enough. That's enough for you to be able to validate it for yourself. Okay. I know some people are going to hate that I'm saying that, but I feel like if you can resonate with the story, you probably are a person that can hear that and that can take it the right way. Okay. So good luck. I would love to hear from you if you want to engage. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Welcome home.